Welcome back to our AWS Zero to Hero series. Today we will be looking at creating an EC2 instance using CloudFormation, and instead of connecting EC2 instance using Instance Connect, we will be using SSM agent. So what is SSM? SSM is nothing but it is a session manager. We can manage hundreds or thousands and millions of sessions using session manager. We can scale EC2 instance, like if we need to connect an EC2 instance, but we should be connecting it securely without using any bash-in host. Let's say it is also having an example. When you come down to the documentation of session manager, you can see connect to your EC2 instance using without SSH key, bash-in host, or any opening of inbound ports in security groups. So let's do this. Let's deploy the EC2 instance using CloudFormation. It is an infrastructure as a code tool where we can automate all the resources using YAML script itself. We already have Terraform for it, but today we'll be deploying this EC2 instance using CloudFormation. So I have already written the script. So let me explain the script. So this is a CloudFormation YAML template where we have basic thing. These are the basic details which we have to give for the template. Just like Docker file, we will be giving versioning, and for Kubernetes file, we'll be mentioning kind like deployment or service. Likewise, we will be giving this AWS template. This is a basic format. The important thing to note is like how we give parameters. So here, to create an EC2 instance, I have used a parameter to give instance type and a VPC ID for choosing VPC ID and for subnet. I am mentioning parameters and giving these values so that I can pass while I run. So I have mentioned this parameter here and I will be referencing it here. So this is the parameter block. Then comes the resource blocks. So this resource contains what are the resources which we are going to create. Let's say it is an EC2 instance. We need a security group. If we have a security group, then we need an IAM role, and more importantly, we need an EC2 instance resource where it has EBS volume, everything, right? Similar way, we have mentioned the resource and we are naming, like first it is creating an IAM role called passport instance IAM role. Inside this, let's say when we create manually, we have to create a policy. Then we have to create an IAM role. Then we have to create an instance profile, then attach to an EC2 instance, right? So when it comes to the code, it becomes simpler. Let's say what we are doing here is we are mentioning as passport instance, and we are mentioning the properties like assume role policy. This is our trust policy. So this role can trust EC2 instance, and we can assume role like we have already explained in instance profile. For that we are creating an IAM role, and IAM role has to be attached with the policy. So we are attaching like this managed policy ARN we are mentioning, and we are giving Amazon SH manager instance core. So this policy is helping us to connect to the we have attached S3 full access in our previous video. Similarly, what we have done is we have attached Amazon session manager instance core so that we can use a session manager. We have defined IAM role. Then comes this passport. This YAML template has been created for passport, but we can use for other things also. It is just a naming convention. I have mentioned as passport. You can name as how you want. Like when it comes to instance profile, so we have created an IAM role. Now we have to carry the role to an EC2 instance. So we need an EC2 instance profile. For that we are creating this resource. So this is just a naming. Inside this we are mentioning type instance profile, and then comes the property. What we are doing is we have to attach a role to an instance profile, right? So what we are doing is we are using ref function to reference the above role. So here is the above role. Here is the above role. We are referencing this role here, so that when this code is running, it will call this reference and it will attach this role to this instance profile. And we have to create a security group. For that also we have a resource. Let's say when it comes to property, we are the security group will have inbound and outbound rules. So we outbound rule is explicitly allowed. Everything will be allowed. So we only have to configure inbound rule. So as we are deploying in EC2 instance, by default, what we will be doing is we will open port 80 and port 443. That is HTTP and HTTPS connection. And I have added another port called 980 just for to show that we can customize as you want. This is just an example. So if you want to open another port, like your application is running in some other port, you can define your you can configure the security group. Then comes the main part. We have configured IAM role, instance profile, and security group. So all the additional resources which we have created above will come under this EC2 instance. So all the resources which come under this EC2 instance. So we are mentioning type as EC2 instance. Then when it comes to property, for instance type, we are getting this reference from parameters. What type of EC2 instance, whether it is T2 micro or T2 small or T2 medium, the value comes from parameters instance type. And then what we have mentioned, and then it is like instance profile. We need instance profile, right? We have already created the resources above. So instance profile, it is referencing here, and automatically IAM role will be attached here. And there comes image ID. I have explicitly mentioned hardcode this value here because I am in AP South 1. If you are in different region, you have to check the AMI. Like I am using Ubuntu 22.4 version. So I have taken from the AWS console that this is the AMI which I need to use. If you want some other AMI like Linux, Red Hat or some other flavors, you can go there, console, log into console and find the AMI, and you can copy here and paste it so that the OS will be different. And then security group, like we have mentioned above, the security group will be is referenced here. Like this will be added to our EC2 instance. Then more importantly, we have a EBS volume. We have to attach an EBS volume to EC2 instance, right? Because when we deploy a server, we need a storage. For that, in the script itself, we are attaching EBS volume here. Like volume size will be 10 GB and volume type will be GP3. And the device name and path will be like dev slash. This is basics for Linux. By default, this will come under this path so that it will automatically mount and it will be loaded to the EC2 instance. Advantage of CloudFormation template is like not only creating the resource, like we see an output in Python code or some other coding, we can mention outputs. Like if we mention output and if we mention the output and we mention like instance ID, automatically instance ID which is created by an EC2 instance will be coming as an output. So if we need to see a public IP, we can see a public IP. I have configured this way. We can see anything. Like if I want to see a security group ID, I can mention here security group ID and I can directly access the security group ID. So here the main thing is, as we are configuring SSM, so I have mentioned SSM as a link so that one click link, if I click here, automatically it will take me to the SSM manager. So let's deploy this and see. Go inside CloudFormation stack and create a stack. You will have console like this. You just come down, choose existing template. Here instead of Amazon S3, we are going to upload from our local. So I have the same configuration file in our Git repository. I am giving this in description. The same file I'm having in VS Code also. So what I will be doing now is I am just choosing the CloudFormation template which we have already written. So choose file. So this is our YAML file. Let's upload this. So YAML file has been uploaded. Click next. We have to give a name. Let's say SSM with CloudFormation. CLOUD. So as we saw, we have a parameter when we are deploying. When it is running, we can give a parameter while it is running. I mean runtime. Stack must contain. Let us. So I'm just removing this hyphen. Instead, I'm mentioning like this. Okay. Now it is resolved. Instance type is T3 micro. Subnet, I am choosing this subnet. I'm using default VPC. If you have deployed a new VPC, or if you want to deploy in private subnet, you can choose and you can proceed. You just acknowledge and give next. So this is for checking. You just can review and create the resources. As I already configured, I know, so I'm just directly submitting it. So this will take some time to create the resources. When you deploy, automatically we can see like stack information, what it is creating in progress, events, what it is first creating. See, it has created security group, and security group was in progress, and when it is created, it got green. So likewise, we see all the events, how it is creating, in which order. So it is very intelligent. Like CloudFormation is too much intelligent. It knows which resources to create first, because when we need to create an EC2 instance, we don't create EC2 instance. First, we configure the virtual firewall, which is called as security group. Then only step by step we go, and we will be creating an IAM role, and then we will be attaching a policy to it, and we will be creating EC2 instances last. Like similarly, when it comes to CloudFormation, it knows which resource to be created first and how to integrate everything. It orchestrates and gives us the whole resource. So when you go to resources, here we can see what it has created. It has already created a security group, and it has already created an IAM role for us. It is now creating EC2 instance and instance profile. Go to the output. As of now, there is no resource created, so it is not showing any output. Once the resources are fully completed, it will show. Let's wait for some time. Now we can see the stack info. So the status is created completion. So go to the output. Now we can see instance ID. We have our instance ID, and public IP is, this is our public IP. And SSM, like I already said, let's go to the EC2 instance itself and then check. So let's check whether it has created resource. So something is running. Let's go inside it and verify. So when you try to connect, we can see lots of options like EC2 instance connect, session manager, SSH client, and EC2 serial console. So what we have done is, instead of connecting through EC2 instance connect, we're going to connect through session manager. If we are connecting through EC2 instance connect or SSH client, then we have to enable security group, and we have to configure PEM key for it. But when it comes to session manager, we can like in a large organization, EC2 instance will be at large scale, like it will be 500, 10,000. So when we want to connect to an EC2 instance which is large in number, which is at scale, we will be using session manager. So let's connect to the session manager. You can either click this session manager, or you can go to our CloudFormation template directly, and you can see here like session manager console link is already there. Even if you try to go to each instance connect and then connect, it won't connect as we don't have configured security group. So it will show error, throw error only. So by this way, we can access an EC2 instance very securely. Even if you have deployed a EC2 instance in a private subnet, you can access through session manager. Let's say we don't need an bastion host to connect to an EC2 instance, even if it is in a private subnet. We can enable SSM and we can connect to an EC2 instance through session manager. Like I said, it is throwing error. We can't establish session SSH connection. But when we go to session manager, go to connect, then session manager. If you connect, it will automatically connect. So this is how you secure an EC2 instance. The person who is having AWS access and his permission, we can configure the IAM role, right? So within the organization, the person who has an AWS access can easily go to an EC2 instance and connect to an EC2 instance using SSM. So we have connected to an EC2 instance. So this is our instance ID. For checking, let's do one thing. So let's deploy an Nginx deployment here. Let's install an Nginx here and let's see the output of it using a public IP. So what I'm going to do is I have already written the script. So Nginx script, nothing but we will be running an shell commands. So let's update first. I'm going to update a package and then I will be installing Nginx in. So second command will install Nginx. Sudo apt install -y Nginx. So this third command will enable Nginx. And fourth will be starting Nginx. So we are going to start the Nginx server. So as we have installed Nginx, let's go to the public IP. From the CloudFormation template itself, we can take instance public IP. Let's go to output. Here we will be having either we can access from here or we can directly go to NIST instance. This is our public IP. Copy this IP and let's check whether our Nginx deployment has been deployed. So the basic Nginx server is up. Let's change this Nginx and let's change the index.html file. So I have already created a small script. So what it will be doing is it will be editing the index.html file inside the deployment. So go to the session manager. It is already connected to our EC2 instance. Paste this script. I have given all the script in our GitHub repository. Okay, so we don't have permission. So what we can do is sudo su. So we are logging as a root user. Then paste here. So now what happens is this basic HTML page has been replaced by our customized page. So EC2 instance 0 to hero series. So it is also showing the public IP address. So this is how you create an CloudFormation EC2 instance using CloudFormation and access EC2 instance using SSM. So after creating it, you have to delete the resource. What you have to do is go to the CloudFormation template. You go to the stacks. You can see here like stacks. So click this, and if you give delete, automatically, if we are creating a resources manually, then we have to go to an each resource and delete manually. Like we have to delete IAM role, we have to delete security group, and one by one we have to delete. When you create an infrastructure using IAC, that is as a code, you can click with one click deployment. Either we can delete directly with a one click delete. So let's delete this. Once you delete, automatically everything which is inside it will getting destroyed. Go to the events, one by one each resource will be deleted. Deleting in progress, right? Thank you guys. See you in upcoming videos.